Hello everyone, Mrhappy here, and welcome to Mondays with Mrhappy, aka Mrhappy Mondays, the weekly Q&A show where you ask me questions and I answer them. Still in that famous Final Fantasy XIV lull. Well, it's famous now. The lull of the month of October. And hopefully you guys have been entertaining yourselves adequately as you wait for this month, whether it be in Final Fantasy XIV or not. Just so you guys know, if you haven't already been checking it out, I've been streaming Blade and Soul all weekend pretty much, on top of some Final Fantasy V for Subscriber Appreciation Day on Sundays. So I'm going to be posting a first impressions video for the alpha of the English version of Blade and Soul with my honest opinions about the game very soon. I also want to announce that we are going to be having a launch event for Heart of Thorns. I will give you more details on that, but I got my level 80 Necro back in Guild Wars 2. So it's just a matter of really relearning the game. I have to really try to get some Ascended gear sometime, either this week or next. And I know that's like no way. Like, odds are I'm not going to get any Ascended gear before Heart of Thorns comes out, but one can hope, right? I mean, I haven't played the game in 3 years, so I'm just thankful to have my old account back and to have a game where I feel like I can actually play it with my viewers, with my subscribers. So I'll give you more details about the Heart of Thorns event. We also have 2 other special events coming later this month or the start of next month. Guys, we got a ton of special things planned for the remainder of this month. One thing I'm still pondering is doing a super stream week, which would mean almost no YouTube content, which is kind of like what I did this weekend with Blade and Soul, where I just literally don't produce YouTube content for an entire week, but I stream 9 to 12 hours a day. I want to do that. I haven't decided if I'm going to do it or when I'm going to do it. If anything, I might wait till after 3.1, when you have Blade and Soul on the weekend, Wildstar and Guild Wars 2 and Final Fantasy XIV during the week, Divillion, during the week. But I haven't decided anything yet. I've got a lot of plans, guys, and hopefully you guys are excited for it. But anyway, not going gunner's list for this episode because, well, the reflection on the screen is just a little bit too annoying. But let's get right into the questions, shall we? Alright, first question seems to be a short one. Hello, Happy. Have some Kupo mythology. Kupo. JK, just wanted to know what's your take on 14 on the Xbox. I play on PS4, but I have some bros that are on Xbox One that want to play and can't. I don't know if the game's ever going to come. Not unless Microsoft takes their head out of their ass and says, oh yeah, no, this will be a good idea. They pretty much, they posted something on IGN. I don't remember the exact words that they said, and if I can probably put a source to it in the description of the video. But it was basically that, like, they wanted people to have, like, a reason to, you know, buy the Xbox, and they didn't want to work with companies that had deals on other consoles or something along those lines. I'm wording it terribly. I'll put an article explaining why it isn't and may never come to the Xbox One in the description of the video, and you can check that out. Next question. Hi, Hap. First time asker and whatever, take your pick. I had a strange idea, but I would love to see in 14. How about to make the Blue Mage as a legit tank? So I've actually been considering making a video with my thoughts on this exact idea. I saw one comment for it, and it made the most sense I've ever heard. I have to have seen this comment before because there's no way it's the first time I've seen it. I just have to be blanking it out. Blue Mages in every game, literally their entire goal is to get hit to learn attacks. If that doesn't spell tank, I obviously know that their goal to be hit doesn't necessarily mean they are innately tanky, but I even think back to some of the Blue Mage abilities you get across the games, and there's a variety of effects, but they all usually have some sort of defensive tools amongst their offensive kit, which honestly sounds pretty much like the way tanks are being played right now. You know, they're basically functioning as a, 5th and 6th DPS with some extra defensive capabilities. That pretty much sounds like Blue Mage would fit right in. I honestly think it's a good idea, and I think it also makes Samurai able to be a DPS, as you list right here. You have a theory of why Samurai must be a DPS, but that's a topic for another time. But yeah, I'm all for the idea. I think that it is the right idea for Blue Mage because it gives them a better way of capturing that I need to get hit by things to learn them. There's no way you won't because you're the tank in every group. It just makes more sense that way. So we'll see what they end up doing because I still have, problems with the way they'd probably have to implement Blue Mage. I don't know how they would learn certain abilities. I have my thoughts. I hope maybe they'll introduce a new sort of hybrid role around the time Blue Mage comes out, but we'll see. That's, like you said, a topic for another time. Next question. Hello, Mrhappy. Love your stream. Here's my question. As a monk, being such a positional player, it is frustrating with all the AoE. Sometimes it is hard to know if my position is right or if I'm either in front or back of the target. So my question is, do you think SE will address this issue by making the target area either bigger or anything else that would help jobs like monk whose position is so vital to their play? I'm not sure I understand the question So if you look at the hitbox of an enemy, there's actually 3 separate indicators as to what side you are on. If you're on the back, then it's just 1 ring. There's 1 ring on the rear. When you're on the sides, it's 2 rings, and I believe at the front, it curves into a single ring again, but it's like I don't remember what the indicator is. I think the indicator is the direction of the target arrow in the front. I don't remember. I feel like there is some sort of thing that lets you know, hey, this is the front, this is where the flank ends and the front ends. As for AoEs, I mean, Monk's not the only job. I mean, Dragoon has literally a random positional on their kit. You know, Ninja has a few positionals as well. I don't think they're gonna do anything like that. There is already max melee range. You know, you don't have to be right up under the boss. You do have a maximum melee range, and a lot of people play around that for certain AoE. So it sounds like you may just need to practice a little bit more in order to learn what that maximum melee range is and how to utilize it. How to utilize not going from the far flank to the far rear. Like, let's say the flank is here and the rear is here, and you're going from here to here to here to here for your combos. Sorry, I know I'm getting far away from the microphone. Instead of doing that, know that the barrier between the two is like right here, you know, 45 degrees in between the two, and just kind of do this, like just go like this between the 2 areas. That way you barely have to move and you can hit both positionals. Just take a little bit of practice. It sounds like you still need to work out a few things when it comes to dodging AoEs and still hitting your positionals. Next question. Hey, Mrhappy, been a while since I asked the question, so have some SOs to fund your man moding with Warrior. You know, I need them. Here's my question for week 61. I'm leveling a Ninja alt to do alt rating. Nice. And I want to have some quick pointers and tips that could help me endgame. For instance, when do I armor crush? Less than 20 seconds? Less than 10? Who does my goad go to first? What, do you use Kasatsu off cooldown or only when trick attack is up? Thanks for your time. So it's a bit of a loaded question. Armor crush, I have what's called the 24-second rule. If you don't have a warrior reapplying Storm's Eye for you, then around the 24 to 20-second mark will usually be when you want to refresh it. This, of course, depends on the boss. This depends on if you can hit the target, if you have any targets available. There are times where it's better to just do a what's it called, an Aeolian Edge, because the boss is going to go untargetable for 15-20 seconds anyway, and you could just hoot on instead. You know, hard cast it because you're not going to have any targets to hit. Solid example, A1 Savage. You know, when the bosses jump, hootoning there is generally a good idea. As for, but if you do have a warrior, you can usually go with under 16 seconds. Again, it depends on if the boss is going to jump or go untargetable or something like that. It really is something that you learn on a boss-to-boss basis, but if you go and hit a dummy, try the 24-second rule. Just because you're applying it yourself, you'll usually find that all of your cooldowns line up perfectly with everything once you've gotten a little bit of practice in on it. As for who your goad goes to first, usually the other melee DPS. It depends. Some groups do it differently. Usually other melee DPS, tank, and then other melee DPS for the rest of the fight. That's at least what we do most of the time. Because our other melee DPS wreck shit, so, you know, gotta make sure they got the fuel to do it. As for Kasatsu, it really, again, depends on the fight. The general rule of thumb is, learn how many Kasatsus you can get in a fight. How long does it take us to beat the fight? 8 minutes? Okay. How many Kasatsus can I get off in 8 minutes? If I delay this Kasatsu, will I lose a Kasatsu at the end of the fight? That is the most important thing. It takes a little bit of foresight, and honestly, it's an effort a lot of people don't bother putting into the job. I myself, when I'm just re-clearing, I'm like, I don't give a shit, whatever, I'm just using it. But when you're maximizing, you do want to take the encounter time, the enrage, into how often you can use it. If you do it right, it almost always lines up with every other trick attack, at least in a somewhat neat fashion. So again, just take it fight by fight and you should be okay. These are things you're gonna have to learn as you're going. Hopefully these are general tips that you can then apply to your learning process. Next question. Hey, Mr. Haps, thanks for answering my question back on 56. No worries if you don't remember. I recognize the name, I don't remember the question though. Anyway, thought just kind of hit me when thinking about the next expansion. So what if for 4.0, instead of getting a bunch of abilities, for the love of God, we better not, instead we get more enhanced traits added to our jobs? So that's something a lot of people have brought to me. They have to basically be enhanced traits that actually offer new gameplay elements. So like, for example, you know how we have River of Blood now? Maybe you'll have something else that whenever you use a procced Bloodletter, it has a chance to reduce the cooldown of Sidewinder, you know, for that. Or whenever you get a Fire Cloud, you know, whenever you get 2 or 3 Fire Cloud procs, your next Fire 4 will refresh Astral Fire or something like that. Or I don't know. That way you don't have to, you know, do that Fire 1 in order to keep it. I'm spitballing. Obviously, that sounds like a shitty cooldown or a shitty enhanced trait, but I'm just thinking of things along those lines. They have to be somewhat game-altering enhanced traits. Stuff like even more strength. Like, yeah, they could do that, but that's not interesting. It's like, woohoo, a little bit more strength. I barely even noticed it the first time. I don't think they should do new abilities, though. They got to figure something else out. Maybe a skill tree, so we have just an extra option, a different way to play the job. You know, that should be adequate. No idea what they're going to do just yet, though. Next question. Hey, Happy, have a hint of the location of an item you would want if you knew of its existence. That is like the most, like, I don't even know how to take that. Alright, I've been thinking about how black mages have been shown enhancing the attack power of other melee classes, Vivi and Papalimo. It's got me excited about the concept of team limit breaks. I'm already going to go ahead and say no to this. I'll read the rest, though. Something like having a 1.5 second long counter to allow up to one team per additional LB bar to join in on your LB to enhance it. So, I want you to think about things like this. So, let's say you have your DPS LB. Tier 3, because then you also have to consider how this affects tank and healing LB, because it's easy to calculate it out for, like, DPS LB. So let's say you take the time to add these 3 other people in. They need to be a part of the entire limit break, right? This is 1.5 seconds they're giving up, so they're likely lost a global cooldown at this point. Now, on top of that, they're stuck in this animation lock for the LB, which has been said that is an intended thing, so that way you're not able to do other actions while you're LBing, because otherwise it'll just be ridiculously overpowered. So let's say, you know, you got the ninja, you got the monk, and you have a bard. So Bard has to put up their dots, then do it. Ninja put up their dots, Monk put up their dots, do it. Monk's probably going to lose Grease Lightning because of this. The Ninja's going to set themselves back on their Armor Crush timing, most likely. Although at the same time, they're probably going to be like, all the TP, thank you. And then you also have the Bard, who, yeah, they're doing dots, but they're also missing, you know, maybe they get a proc in that time. Maybe you're basically, it needs to be so strong, the loss of global cooldown enhances it. And then how do you enhance the healer one? Do you give everyone a shield that's over the top? Is it really worth having no healers for however long? Because you probably have to have people that are immediately interactive with the role in order to do something like this. Anything that puts 4 people into some sort of animation lock, I'm not okay with. I think the way we have it now is fine. It functions the way it is. I don't think it needs any sort of team interaction ability. The team builds the limit break as is. It's just all about how one person decides to use it. You also have a bonus question about the Mime class, it looks like. I'm not a big fan of the idea of Mime. It just doesn't make sense. Like, look at the way that bosses attack in this game. Having a Mime to, like, reflect, redistribute, and absorb, how would it work? Like, realistically, applying this to endgame raid bosses, how does this job function? Like, you can say they can, abilities have them copy teammates and use ability attacks, or enemy attacks in interesting ways. But why would you want to copy an ally's attacks versus just having a job in that slot that can perform its own attacks and its own unique things? I know you obviously don't want it to copy everything, but having something built around just that theme seems like it doesn't fit. Like, that's one of those really niche things that works in the really old school Final Fantasies, where it's super simple to understand combat. There's really nothing fancy going on, like, oh, maybe it's weak to a certain element, or maybe if you know, take its attack White Wind, you can use it, but, you know, that's kind of what Blue Mage does. So, I don't know, I just don't think Mime fits into Final Fantasy XIV. I think there are better roles suited for an MMORPG, and I don't think that's one of them. Next question. Hey, Mr. Happy, as a trophy hunter, I've been kind of disappointed that 14 hasn't added any new ones throughout all the patches, only kinda. That initial trophy list was pretty bland. I understand that they have an in-game achievement list, but I'm just, let's see, I'm just stacking on another, to do another X 1,000 times to get really pointless. I can say from experience, most serious trophy achievement hunters are willing to throw money at the screen if there are trophies added to games. Why do you think they have avoided additional trophies that could definitely bring new players to the game, even for a short time, at least put more effort in the game achievements? It takes almost no time to add trophies, my understanding, and after that initial launch is completely up to the devs. Honestly, I'm more... It's really hard to come up with trophies for MMOs on consoles that aren't literally just kill a bunch of shit, or level this, or, you know, gather X amount of items. It's honestly pretty hard. Now, I know you can tie it from the in-game achievement system to the actual trophy system, but because their achievements in the game are very simple, the trophies are hard to make anything. It's hard to make more trophies, like, other than gather you know, 100 items in the Dravanian hinterlands, or defeat Alexander, which honestly there should be trophies for at least the new rating tiers. I think that that's a fair thing to want. That being said, I'm more interested in them making in-game achievements more interesting. Like, for example, you know, beats, what's his name, beats A1 Savage, never having two resin bombs separated from each other. So every resin bomb has to only overlap with a single other resin bomb, or they have to, like, you can't have one off on its own. They all need to be touching each other. So everyone needs to do a very special position in order to make that happen, because then the tanks are considered for that. So how do you manage to pull that off with the tanks, who could both get one on their own? And you have to do the fights in, like, crazy, ridiculous ways just to get that to work. It forces you to approach the fight from a more difficult angle, or from a different angle, and actually coordinate. And it's almost like adding a new boss encounter, or adding a new difficulty without actually having to do it. I would like to see more achievements that force you to look at a fight and do it in an unconventional way. Those are so fun to do. Or speedruns, I don't know. I really want to see them add new, more interesting in-game achievements, though. And then they could translate that into trophies. Next question. Hi, Haps. Just a quick question for Mondays with Mr. Happy, aka Mr. Happy Mondays, a weekly Q&A show where we ask you answers and you question them. Wait, what? That's not right. I know you're not running a parser, but can you tell me how much average DPS you're doing on Alex Savage fights and a dummy as a ninja? Man, I haven't checked that in a while. I think with me doing the dolls, sacking once, I think I was at 1169 on A4 Savage last I checked, but that's as an I-210 ninja. That could realistically be closer to like 1300. Oh, and I also LB once, so, but that's not really that big a deal. That does make it so that my pot timing is a little off. My third pot, I think, my second pot is pretty suboptimal because I have to use it on the fourth leg, and the only good time to use it on the fourth leg is after all my cooldowns are gone, so that's pretty rough. Yeah, 1169. As for a dummy, I don't know, man. A dummy, I guess I'd have to wonder, because last time I checked it was like, I think 1250. When was that, though? That was before my 210 weapon. I haven't checked since I got my 210 weapon, man. I'd have to pretty much go to my group and ask them what kind of numbers that we have, or something along those lines. Stacks for the sake of, he's doing really good between 1200s and high 1300s depending on the fight, but he wants to know if he still has improvements to make. It's like watching FF vlogs, because there's a lot of ways to inflate DPS to a single person. Ninja doesn't have great ways to inflate DPS there, outside of maybe Astrologian cards, just because they don't have great AoE. The only thing you can do is, like, feed them resources, like give them extra peons, or make sure that they're never doing mechanics. Like, that's pretty much the only way to inflate. But the 1200s to the 1300s is good. That's where you realistically should be, around the I-200 range. Depending on if you're the one responsible for certain mechanics, if you get targeted for certain mechanics, but that's generally where he wants to be, because that sounds like a good thing to have. So, honestly, I don't think he needs... Honestly, any tips? It sounds like what he's doing is working, and he's in a good range. I guess I could ask more specific questions, like which fights this includes, or if this is only on dummies, if it's in Savage itself. It says depending on the fight. Is it Ravana? Because Ravana is a bit of an inflate machine, you know, so it's hard to tell, or if it's just normal mode. But without asking those questions, I'm just going to assume that's Savage, and that would mean he's doing real good. Next question. Hey, Mr. Happy. First time question, so soldiery bonus. Damn it. Our Static is on A1 Savage, and our Bard, who has been with us for a while, has a lot of problems dodging. A lot. Photon Beam, Resin Bomb, you name it, she eats it. She's a PC user, and we'll be recommending what the faster ping zapper accordingly, but as her raid leaders, what do you recommend we do to teach her to dodge? Apart from dodging, she's often slow on mechanics, and she rarely, if ever, talks on TeamSpeak, so it's hard to discuss with her. Any strategies for how we can teach mechanics? You need to tell her she needs to get on TeamSpeak, and it needs to be discussed. Like, here's the thing. You can't let somebody's issues or somebody's, you know, regular tendencies prevent you from having a serious discussion with them, even if you have to have the discussion in game. If they're having trouble dodging and what the faster ping zapper doesn't work, you literally need to tell them that somehow they need to do it, because if they can't dodge anything, you're not going to pass the fight. I mean, that's just the bottom line. Like, just needs to increase her ability in dodging. That's all there is. That's all there is to it. I mean, without hurting feelings, it's going to be hard. I think feelings are going to get hurt here. Just because you're telling somebody you need to play better. Like, that's unfortunate that has to be the conversation that's had, but I mean, I don't know what else to tell you, man. it's a conversation just flat out. Recommend this in case they're lagging. Ask them if they're lagging. If they say no, that's where things get rough. And, you know, because you could try the what the faster ping zapper, but I don't know. It's a tough situation, man. It's got to be discussed like adults. It's got to be discussed like adults. Just give it a shot. That's the best I can really say. Next question. Hello, Happy. You never directly answered me before, so you receive a bonus tombstone. That covers any patch. After seeing news about upcoming 3.1 content in Heavensward, something seems missing. Slight spoiler alert here. Alright, so I guess if there's slight spoiler alert, I'll do the whole thing and remove it from the screen. There we go. Alright, starting. Where's the storyline boss? Every single patch this point is told its own story. Oh, this isn't a thing. This isn't a spoiler. Whatever. Let's back. This isn't even a spoiler. Where's the storyline boss? Every single patch at this point has told its own story, culminating in a boss fight, whether it be Mog, Ascian, a Primal, etc. Yet I saw nothing about a fight against the boss here. I would consider it pretty cheap if they tried to just stick to the extreme rehash at the end of the questline and say, oh, he came back stronger. No, I think there is something here. I think it's going to be somewhere along the lines of like Nabrialis, where it wasn't something they really teased all that much, but there is a fight that this patch is going to have some sort of trial that we just don't know about yet. I think that's the way it's going to be. I don't think they're going to they're going to use the Knights of the Round Extreme as a means of being like, hey, he's back. They've never used an extreme as part of the story before. Main reason I don't think that'll happen. Next question. Hi, Happy. First time asker, long time watcher of your videos. Hey, hate to bring this up. In last week's video, there was talk of free to play. Oh, man. And all that crap. Honestly, if this happens, I will straight up drop 14. Wow. There's a problem, though. A lot of people say the sub-based MMO model is dying. What do you think about this? Is this a reality? For new IPs, yes. I do not think going into sub-to-play is smart. I think you need a dedicated franchise that has people that will, like, they're diehards, and you are, you know, you're feeding to their desires, really. Let's look at World of Warcraft. You know, that's a premier MMO example of a sub-based game that has catered to its fans' desires for a long time. I know some people are like, no, it says fuck you to all its fans, whatever, because, you know, the stories in the books and the story in the game is inconsistent, whatever. But they still have created a world that people fell in love with before and have expanded upon it. That is why it does so well in the sub-market. Not just because they put out quality raids, they put out a world, they weave a story for those that are interested, there's lots of quests, there's good humor, all of that's there. But it can all be there, and it's all there in a lot of other games, and it does not ring with people because they don't relate to it. They don't relate to the characters there. The world itself isn't as fluid. There's something missing. Final Fantasy is a game, or is a franchise, that should have subscription-based MMOs, only because it has a die-hard fan base. You know, and this is something we're going to touch upon this week, kind of in State of the Realm, so spoilers, if you haven't seen that, come by the episode live this week. I think that new MMOs, like, you know, Blade and Soul, for example, like WildStar, you know, it would be a risk for them to go full subscription-based as opposed to free-to-play with an optional subscription. I think free-to-play with an optional subscription might be the safest thing to do as a new MMO on the market, but 14, maybe true that sub-based MMOs are dying, but 14 is not one of those games that's dying. It's in a bit of a lull, but not dying. Alright, so I have a question here that was asked last week, but it's very, very long, so I'm just going to skip right to the question. Do you believe we'll be getting an additional race come next expansion? No. I think they will do no more new races. They wanted one new race because the original 5 were basically carbon copies of Final Fantasy XI. They needed something more original. I don't see us getting like a Viera next patch or something like that. Or, I'm sorry, next expansion or anything along those lines. Second quick question. My other question would be, how likely would it be for the developers to make bunny ears from the gold sauce for both males and females? I think they said they were. They said the men were getting the bunny outfits. I'm almost positive I remember them saying that. Maybe not, but if not, honestly, they should at this point. I mean, you can already get eternally bonded between the same races. There's no point in having something like this outfit be race only. I'm almost positive they said the bunny stuff was going to be both genders at this point. Oh well, I don't know. I think they should, though. And for the final question, what computer software do you recommend for recording games as you play them? I'd like to start recording League of Legends in 14. It depends. I use OBS, and I tune the settings up, usually like 1080p and a higher bitrate and 60 FPS. There are better programs like Mrhappy Action. Some people still use Fraps. I don't like Fraps because the file sizes are too big, so it makes, you know, moving them from one computer to my rendering computer a pain in the ass. You could go with OBS or Mrhappy Action. I really like Mrhappy Action, so give that a look. It has a cost, but I think you'll find the cost worthwhile as long as you're doing something you enjoy with it. Next question. Hey there, Hap. Hope you're doing well. I hope you're doing well as well, my man. Wow, we said the word well a lot right there. Said it again. As a middle core player with a lot of time on my hands and no real motivation to go for Savage, I find myself spending most of my time queuing for level 50 content like WoD for Glamours. I find that getting a group together through Duty Finder is much more time consuming than the raids themselves. My question is, given the current long content, do you think that giving relevant bonuses, such as small esoterics bonus for completing old content like the Binding Coil or CT, would it incentivize more people to queue for them? No, because they have to try harder. People already treated CT like a joke when there were relevant rewards. Imagine if they could go back to it and treat it like that again. It would probably treat it like that more. And honestly, I don't think adding esoterics is going to do much because people are already like saying like, I don't need any more esoterics. I got the pieces that matter to me. I don't need to cap it every week anymore. I don't think that adding it to old content is going to revitalize it all too much. It may give it a slight boost. I don't think that's the right choice. I think CT in particular, they need to make 3 light parties. They also need to make it so you can queue in with what's called undersized, minimum undersized of like 4 or something. I don't know, but it needs to be a little bit easier to queue in. They said they're looking to add incentives to the Crystal Tower again. I don't see them adding incentives to the Binding Coil of Bahamut anywhere though. It just seems like too much effort for them, in all honesty. Alright, we did another slightly longer post, so I just want to scroll right down to the question. I want to thank this person for their hello real quick. Hello, Mr. Happy. Fairly new viewer and first-time asker, so have an SO bonus. If you're capped already, which I hope you are, you can have a few of my Red Gatherer tokens. That's very, very kind of you. But let's get right into the question. Okay, this is kind of embarrassing, but I'm a level 60 ninja, and honestly, I have no idea what sort of rotation I should be doing on trash. Honestly, it can be pretty annoying doing rotations on trash as a ninja. So what I usually do, I'll usually open up with my single target a rotation up until I Kasatsu on the highest priority target, which, like, for example, in Fractal, if you're doing the first 5 mobs or the first full pull, that would be the Dreadnought, for example. I'll open up a Trick Attack on that. Then I'll gauge the amount of AoE damage that went out. And I'll ask myself, is the AoE damage really high here, or is it really low? If it's really high, I'll just Kasatsu Katan at that point. If it's really low, I throw down a Doton because I know everything's still going to be alive for quite some time. After I get to my dots, I usually don't go past Shadow Fang on trash. Mutilate, very rare that you ever get the opportunity to use it and have it be effective. Shadow Fang only takes a couple of ticks for it to be effective, and depending on the Duty Finder, usually works out. But after that, then I start spamming some whatever it's called, Death Blossom, and once I get to Invigorate, though, as soon as I use that Invigorate, I'm like, I can't do this anymore, because I will run out of TP. And then I just start single targeting down whatever target seems to be safe for me to hit. It really depends on the speed, what kind of trash pull, what kind of a rotation you're going to do on a trash pull. As for whether or not you use Dancing Edge, yeah, you should use Dancing Edge. Dancing Edge is still good. As long as it's going to be alive for a couple of GCDs, it ends up definitely being a net gain over everything else. Wow, we have a lot of ninja questions. Keeping on the ninja theme, I recently joined a static for A1 Savage. We haven't beaten the Apprentice yet. We're getting a bit closer every run. Nice. Anyways, I use your opener. There's another opener. The Shasta opener. Are you going to ask me about that? No, okay, you're not. So if I were you, Google the Shasta opener. I've tried them both. Both the opener I have before and Shasta's opener. I like Shasta's opener for the opener itself. I am not a fan of how it lines up depending on the fight. Some fights, blood for blood timing seems really, really off. But for some fights, it's perfect. So I'd say you might want to play around with them both. The concept is the same. You're just opening with a Suiton on top of the Huton. So you'll Huton, wait, Suiton, then the pull will go out. Now, we have a warrior in our group who puts on Stormsight right after I use Dancing Edge. Now, this is very common right here. So this depends on how quickly you got into the fight versus how quickly the warrior got into the fight. Because realistically, if you and him start on your GCDs at the exact same time, you should be 1 second ahead of him, depending on, I guess, if the warrior was the main tank. Because if the warrior is the main tank, then it's a totally different story. They're almost always going to open with a Butchers. I still Dancing Edge in that opener for the security. What usually happens is that Dancing Edge at least nets me an extra auto attack with the slashing debuff, which doesn't make up for the entire Aeolian Edge, but it's security, because you never know. Sometimes I've had the tank just be like, whoops, and all of a sudden there's no Storm's Eye. So I know a lot of people that play it very similarly. We just ensure that if it's not there, we're doing Dancing Edge. Even if it's about to get overwrote, we just do it. It's something that so many ninjas do, and it's a security thing. I'd say go for it. Go for the Dancing Edge, get the extra damage. You'll at least get the bonus on the auto attack. It doesn't close the gap between Aeolian and Dancing, but it does ensure that just in case anything goes wrong, or just in case your warrior does some sort of really weird opener, that you have the security of doing this. I'm sure there is a better way to optimize this, but the Dancing Edge has been something I've always done. As for the Dex Potion, get the Dex Potions. Switching focus. Holy moly. I leveled warrior past 50 to 54 and I'm really enjoying it. I already have Paladin, Dark Knight 60. As a warrior, I feel like I'm doing a good job bringing damage. However, I seem to be lacking when it comes to actually tanking. You know, the important part. That's not the important part. Large pulls on level 50 and below dungeons. Warrior takes a little bit of practice to do that, because you can't just pop Rampart and be good. Basically, you have Vengeance, and when Vengeance is gone, Vengeance and Bloodbath combined is gone. That's where things get a little bit rough. You need to be using, you know, Foresight. You need to be making sure that you're, maybe you're utilizing Inner Beast a little bit more. Maybe you're utilizing, what's another one? Thrill of Battle to get some health back. And make sure you're using your stuns for mitigation. Your stun, I should say, for mitigation. There's a lot of ways that it can be done, but a lot of it will come down to also having things like Eye for an Eye from, you know, the healer, for example, or, you know, applying Storm's Path on maybe a big threat target. That usually doesn't need to happen, but you will feel squishy at times. It's something you have to get used to, especially if you don't have gear that's of a high quality, especially if you're rolling with gear that's really, really low. Yeah, like you said, after Vengeance, I'm usually done for. Thrill Battle, Convalescence, those should help quite a bit, but they're obviously not be-all, end-alls. Just Inner Beast. Sounds like you just need to be using Inner Beast a little bit more. Next question. Hey, Mrhappy, first time here, but I've watched a vid. Carry me, please. So upon hearing that A4 Savage only drops I-210 weapons instead of I-215 like I would have thought, I was a little discouraged from making that grind to clear Savage. Well, I mean, you got to keep in mind that it drops the only 2 I-210 weapons. Now with the announcement that I-210 gear will be dropping from the new Crystal Tower-esque raid, that is not true, but I'll read the rest of your question first. I feel like Savage will lose its appeal sooner rather than later like Coil did, and will most likely serve as an accolade after the accessibility of this new I-210 gear. So, just to be clear, Void Arc does not drop I-210 gear. We don't know what the item level the Void Arc drops is. Most likely going to be I-200, that would be my guess. What you're thinking of are the Free Company airship explorations, which is basically Diablo-esque loot. You go out there, you may get good loot, you may get bad loot, you're not guaranteed 210 loot. The highest item level you can get is I-210. But even then, it has randomly rolled stats, so it may be complete shit for your job in the end. That's going to mean that people are still going to rely on certain items to be best in slot coming from Savage. Yes, maybe there's a chance you'll get something better from Free Company airship exploration, but there's no guarantee. Maybe you go a week and you don't get anything that's useful. Maybe you get some useful stuff for your off jobs, but not for your main. You're not guaranteed loot. Here, at least in Savage, sure, you're not guaranteed your loot, but every week you're guaranteed something that's at least going to be of use. And it's a reliable best in slot list going into patch 3.2. Just to be clear, Void Arc does not drop I-210 gear, or will not drop I-210 gear. As for this last part where you think that the best gear should come from the most challenging content, at this point it's the best gear or the most consistent best gear comes from the most challenging content. Odd-numbered patches are always catch-up patches, so I always expect something along these lines, like coats and twines are almost definitely going to be available from the Void Arc. In fact, we know they are, because they flat out said they were going to be in the last live letter. So, I mean, I'm with that too. I believe the hardest raid should have the best gear. If you're going to have something that's crafted, that's equivalent, it should maybe have a material that drops in that raid, to give raiders a little bit more income, or to just make crafting something a little bit more viable. But I share your sentiment here. Just know that it's not easy to access I-210 gear. Next question. Hello, Mrhappy, longtime viewer, first time asking, so here's one for every map. My question regarding the argument whether or not the samurai should be either tank or DPS. Here's my thought. Start off with some class. I'm going to stop you there. They're probably not doing classes ever again. The class system is archaic, and they will almost likely never do it again. My original idea, as you list here, was to make a class named Ronin. If you had asked me 2 years ago, I would have said the exact same thing. That was the exact name I used for it 2 years ago. Class, probably never happening again. Don't expect any more classes to get added to Final Fantasy XIV. There should be as expressed interest in sticking with just the job formula from this point on. Much easier to add them the way they added them in Heavensward. So that's immediately the issue with why I feel there's an argument about whether it needs to be one or the other, especially with the sources that I listed on that video. Also, using Arcanist, not many people were as happy with Arcanist as people would lead to believe. There was a huge complaint about Summoner and Scholar sharing stat points, and there are still complaints about it. And it also makes it so that if you want to balance one, you have to balance the other, or you have to only balance the abilities that you gave to the jobs themselves. It's a pain in the ass. Honestly, I think they're going to probably do away with classes at some point, or they're just never going to implement them again. They're just kind of like a beginner's tool or a beginner's trap. It's unfortunate, but I think the only way you see Samurai is one or the other. Skill trees. And Yoshi P's expressed interest in those before, so maybe we see them sometime in the near future. Alright, next question. Hello, Mr. Happy. First question. I have a little issue with the skill Eye for an Eye. I was reading a long time ago the skill only procs on physical damage, but the debuff reduces all damage dealt. I talked about this with a healer from my setting. She said that the skill only reduces physical damage dealt by the enemy. It's a bit weird, because the English skill description doesn't say anything about damage type, and the German description says the debuff only reduces physical damage. You know, I'm thinking about all the times I've ever used Eye for an Eye, because I don't main Scholar, like I don't do hardcore rates. I messed around in some Duty Finder, like second and final coil. That's about it with my Scholar, outside of doing like primals. I think of all the times I ever used Eye for an Eye, and I have a really hard time thinking of a time where I ever heard that it didn't work on, or that it did work on anything other than physical damage. I've always just used it for tank busters. I've never really considered it as a tool to use for the mega flares or anything. Like, I considered it. I always thought maybe it just did everything, but now you've got me unsure with the German description saying physical damage. See, I was originally going to give a very confident answer until you said the German description said it only reduces physical damage. I mean, it wouldn't be the first time the English ones are messed up and the other languages are far clearer. It's happened with a lot of other tooltips before. So I can't give you a solid answer. Shit, I actually don't know this. I thought I knew until you said that. Now I'm questioning everything. Yo, can I get an expert in here? Somebody who's tested this, who knows which one it is? Because if it's only physical damage, shit, they need to change that. They need to change that friggin' tooltip right now. Second question, do you think Warrior is way stronger than the other tanks at the moment? Warrior has to receive a nerf, or the others need a buff? What do you nerf about Warrior? Storm's Path is ridiculously strong. Felcleave, ridiculously strong. They're self-healing, ridiculously strong. The fact that they don't have damage mitigation built into their tank stance, another reason they're really strong. Because you know what? When you take away their tank stance, they're still taking the same damage. They just have less health and less healing. I would like to see the other tanks brought up. I think it's maybe they'll do something for Warrior eventually to bring it down. I hope they don't, though. I'd rather they bring the other ones up and make them more fun to play. Mostly Paladin. I think they could do... I think, honestly, Paladin's issues, they need to design fights that are more physical heavy. So, Rage of Halone really flourishes more than the magic debuff. Or even there's still magic damage, so then it makes Monk a little bit more viable, too, so you can get all the mitigations. Just needs to be more prominent physical damage, more threatening physical damage, either the raid or the tanks. And then ultimately I think they just need to buff the other two tanks. Next question. Hello, Mr. Happy, long-time viewer, first-time question asker. So I have some buttons and a blanket. So I recently joined a casual static raid 1 day out of the week. Nice, and honestly haven't made much progress. Our original lineup was Paladin, Warrior, White Mage ×2, ugh. Bard, Summoner ×2, ugh. Black Mage. With this lineup, we were getting false to 20%. We made some changes, taking on a Monk and me switching to Ninja, and giving us 2 melees, 2 casters, but we're still only getting down to 16. After being parsed, I found out as Nin I'm only doing between 800 and 900. Ooh. Feels as if I'm letting the static down. Should I ask if I can go back to playing my Ninja? You mean go back to playing your Summoner, or suck it up and get good? Could my low DPS also be down to gear? I'm currently I-187, my Ninja and Summoner rocks. Even at I-187, 800, 900 is very low on Faust. Honestly, it doesn't sound like that's the only issue. If you guys changing that composition and still only got it down to 16%, it sounds like there's a lot of issues. It sounds like the tanks aren't doing enough DPS. There's just not enough raid DPS overall. White Mage ×2, I'm not a fan of. I understand it's a casual static, so I'm not going to harp on it too bad. But one of those healers, in fact, both of those healers can be DPSing for almost the first, like, 30 seconds of the fight. Especially with all the regen power, Divine Seal regen power that should be on there. Presence of Mind, Arrow 3, Arrow 2, Arrow Stone 3 spam should be very, very strong at the beginning of that fight for at least the first 20 to 30 seconds, if not longer. And even then, after that's over, just throwing the occasional regen on and then being full-time DPS on one of the two White Mages should help. Paladin main tanking, also going to help. Warrior off tanking in Deliverance, or you can have the Paladin solo tank with the Warrior full-time DPS. You also don't have a Bard, so you're missing foes. Considering you have 2 casters, that's a huge thing, since you got rid of... You had Bard, double Summoner, Black Mage, which honestly had a little bit... Still, obviously, I'm not a big fan of having 3 casters. I like that you guys have Monk Ninja. I don't like that now it's Summoner Black Mage as opposed to like Bard Black Mage or Bard Summoner. But honestly, this isn't a compositional thing. The group needs to just do more DPS. I think that you could be fine learning your Ninja, just practicing it a little bit more. Sounds like you're not comfortable. It's only a 3-minute fight. So go do a dummy, practice on that dummy for a while, and honestly, you should actually see your DPS improve in Faust, because he has no mechanics that Ninja has to be responsible for. As for Summoner, keep in mind Summoner is a little bit inflated on that fight, but regardless, I don't think that's the issue. I think it's a group issue. Everyone needs to kind of work on self-improvement and not just be like, well, this is what I do and that's the end of it. You know what I mean? Hopefully you guys can find a way. Alright guys, I'm getting pretty tired, so I'm going to wrap up with 2 more questions. This one post and then another post, however many questions may be in them. So thank you everyone who asked this week. Sorry if I didn't get to your question. May have been because it was too long. Keep that in mind, that if you post really long questions, it's really hard for me to get to them. So this first one, hello Mr. Happy, no bonus today because I've been falling asleep in the last 6 expert roulettes I had to do to cap. I'm thinking of changing service to Gilgamesh for a more active FC and hardcore raid group. Nearly impossible to find time to transfer, but I hope. You won't be able to transfer to the 20th, so you have plenty of time to make a decision. So try looking for groups before you actually go. Oh, see, you said you knew that. I know I gotta wait till the end of October, just the 20th. So, question number 1. What's the community like? Will I be able to easily find a raid group? If you don't have any raid experience, it's going to be pretty tough. You'll probably have to join a run-of-the-mill group or a party finder group, if that. Because with that, I don't know how much experience you have, so I'd have to know that first. The community itself is fine, but getting into raid groups without experience, pretty rough on Gilgamesh. 2, is it me or is there an achievement in the game that are nearly impossible? Let's say, for example, the Wolves Den, Alpha Wolf, triumph in 5,000 matches. Oh, that's possible. I wouldn't be surprised if a few people have that. I wouldn't be surprised, especially with the way that people win trade, or they used to win trade. People still win trade. What am I talking about? I wouldn't be surprised, but those are really friggin' annoying to get. Like, I don't understand why they went to that extreme. And finally, do you think in a couple of years we're going to have more action RPG MMO? Like, literally every game from Korea seems to be coming over to the West, and they're all action MMOs. And the issue is, like, people say, oh, the tab target MMO is dead. The problem is, the majority of MMOs coming out are not tab targets. Soon everyone's going to be sick of action-based MMORPGs, and they're just going to be like, well, every single MMO is just an action RPG. You know, whatever happened to good old tab target? No one's ever going to be happy. People just need to make games with enticing stories, interesting worlds, intricate combat, and a reason for people to keep playing. Decent content development cycles, and that's rough. It's really hard. I think the MMO genre as an entirety is in a rut. People get hyped over the newest MMO, and then they're just like, well, fuck this, I'm done. So, I think you're going to see nothing but action RPGs for a while, even if those are like isometric views, like Devilian or like Tree of Savior, I believe, is like RO. So, we'll see. Yeah, we're probably going to get mostly action RPG MMO. All right, and we have the final question here. Hey, Mr. Happy, just remember, it's hey. How you doing? I'm doing alright, man. How you doing? I hope you're doing alright, man. I got a couple of questions for you. 1, how do I get to become a guest reoccurring on State of the Realm? I'm guessing I have to be an official member on the Dream Network, so my second question is... Well, no, it's not even that. It's just that we mostly take on guests that have, like, some sort of place in the community. Like Ethis is the lore guy, but he also has strong opinions about raiding. You know, LBR is on the entertainment side of things, and we had them as guests. Same with Frosty TV. You know, when we have sometimes we considering having the community team for Final Fantasy 14. You know, they are the community team, so they interact with a lot of people. You have you know, you have members of the Dream Network who are fellow Twitch broadcasters. That's what they do for the That's what they do for the Final Fantasy 14 community. We look for people that have a certain contribution to the community when we decide guests. We also look at their general mannerisms, their interactivity, you know, what their reputation is, and we try to build a show around that. So it's not so much about being a member of Dream or anything along those lines. It's just a matter of actually being someone who's actively contributing to a large portion or has a large amount of influence within the community. So your second question is, that's the case, how do I become an official member of the Dream Network? We don't take applications for Dream. We like to hand select the people ourselves, Mel and myself, and then discuss it with the rest of the team, just because we actually like really managed everyone. Mel did the majority of it. Like, I step in occasionally when like advice needs to be given about actual broadcasting or YouTube content creation, but like actually encouraging them, you know, telling them this is, you know, what's hot right now, or, you know, just ensuring that they're set up for success. So because we take that personal approach, we don't accept like that. But honestly, being an actual member of Dream and being a member of the network, I'd say are two separate things, because the network itself is a community. So being part of the Final Fantasy community, it's your choice. Do you want to be a member of the Dream community, which is basically the 14 community? I almost said the farteen community. The 14 community, or do you just want to be on the outside? You want to not contribute to it at all? Do you, not want to watch the podcasts? Do you not want to go to Dream Network streamers? Do you not want to, interact with them and the community itself, as opposed to just interacting with the broadcasters? Interact with the community, really drive those things, and then you never know. You just gotta, the thing is, you have to be willing to like work and build on the community. Like, that is the #1 thing. I really got to make that Twitch video about like what the people's approach to building channels and stuff like that, because honestly, like, I have so many strong opinions about it. I think I'm gonna do that right after this, actually, instead of going to sleep. No, I can't. I'll do it in the morning. If I do it tonight, I'm gonna hate myself because I'm gonna be so tired. But anyway, thank you everyone for your questions. Be sure to like, favorite, subscribe, and share. Thank you for coming by Mondays with Mr. Happy, and remember, ask your questions in the thread in the description of the video below. There's gonna be a thread there. I also said I had to list a source for something. I'll go back and watch the video and remember what the source was I had to post, but I can't remember right now. I gotta go back and watch it. So anyway, thank you everyone for coming by. I'll see you all next week, and until then, take care.